Have you ever felt like your life was falling apart? Like everything you thought you knew was slipping away? This feeling isn't just pain, it might be the start of something important. Carl Jung, a famous psychologist, called this the dark night of the soul. It's when we face the parts of ourselves we've been avoiding. Most people run from this darkness, but those who face it find something amazing on the other side. Think about the hardest times in your life. Maybe you lost someone you loved. Maybe a relationship ended. Maybe you woke up one day feeling empty, wondering whose life you were really living. These painful moments aren't punishments, they're invitations to grow. When everything breaks down, something new has room to grow. It's like a seed that must crack open before it can become a tree. The breaking isn't the end, it's the beginning. Pain often comes before change. We build our lives around what feels safe and comfortable. We wear masks to hide our true selves. But deep inside, a part of us knows we're meant for more. When that deeper part starts to wake up, it shakes everything. Most people never take off their masks. They live their whole lives pretending to be someone they're not. But for those brave enough to look beneath the surface, life transforms completely. This journey isn't easy. It hurts to question everything you thought was true about yourself. It's scary to let go of who you thought you were. That's why we keep ourselves busy with work, social media, and endless distractions. We're afraid of what we might find in the quiet moments. But what if your pain has a purpose? What if it's clearing away everything that isn't really you? Every great teacher from Buddha to Jung went through darkness before finding light. They all faced their fears, doubts, and pain before discovering deeper truth. True awakening doesn't start with happiness and light. It starts with facing the dark, uncomfortable truth that the life you've been living might be too small for who you really are. This is where most people turn back. It feels like dying because, in a way, it is the death of your old self to make way for something more real. The question is, are you brave enough to keep going when everything in you wants to run away? When your old self begins to crumble, it feels like your world is ending. The ground beneath your feet, everything you once believed about yourself starts to shake. This isn't just uncomfortable, it's terrifying. Jung discovered something most people never realize. We are not who we think we are. The voice in your head, your memories, your roles and responsibilities, these are just the surface. Beneath lies a vast ocean of hidden drives, forgotten emotions, and unknown potential. Jung called this the unconscious. When it begins to rise to the surface, everything trembles. Most people call this a breakdown. Jung saw it differently. He called it a breakthrough. Think about times in your life when you felt completely lost, when nothing made sense anymore. Those weren't failures, they were invitations to look deeper. Your soul was calling you inward. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Jung wrote, "What we call bad luck or misfortune is often our unconscious demanding recognition, begging us to wake up. But awakening requires courage. Before clarity comes confrontation. You begin to see the hidden reasons behind your choices. How fear shaped your relationships. How old wounds guided your career. How unhealed pain whispered through every decision you ever made. Suddenly, you realize your suffering wasn't random, it was the map to your inner world. Here's the paradox. The more we resist this process, the more painful it becomes. Resistance feeds suffering. Acceptance transforms it. The ego, terrified of losing control, fights desperately to maintain its grip. But control is exactly what must be surrendered. You cannot awaken and remain the same. To evolve, you must let die everything that isn't truly you. This is why Jung studied myths from around the world. Every hero's journey begins with leaving the familiar world and descending into chaos. The hero faces monsters and endures trials before returning transformed. The same journey unfolds within each of us. The monsters are our fears. The chaos is our own mind. The treasure we seek is our true self. So when life feels unbearable, when everything you depended on begins to fall apart, ask yourself, what if this collapse is the beginning of my transformation? What if my pain is the myth of my soul unfolding in real time? Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "One must still have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star." Creation happens through chaos, not order. The pain that comes before awakening isn't there to destroy you, but to forge you into something greater, something truer. Yet few endure it. Our culture teaches us to numb pain, to avoid looking inward at all costs. We scroll, we consume, we chase distractions, but you cannot awaken by escaping yourself. You awaken by facing yourself with radical honesty. As the poet Rumi said, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." Where has light been trying to enter your life? Through what heartbreak? What failure? What moment of despair? And why have you resisted it? When Jung treated his patients, he noticed that healing didn't come from advice or logic. It came when people found meaning in their suffering. Viktor Frankl, who survived Nazi concentration camps, discovered the same truth. Those who have a why to live can bear almost anyhow. When you give your suffering meaning, it transforms from mere pain into growth. But meaning can't be borrowed, it must be discovered, lived, and felt. You find it not by reading about awakening, but by walking through the fire yourself. What if the pain you feel today, the confusion, emptiness, and longing is the same fire the universe uses to awaken souls? What if each tear is an initiation, each loss a sacred passage? Before dawn, there must be darkness. Before awakening, there must be the pain that almost no one can bear. But for those who do bear it, who walk through the inner night without turning away, something extraordinary waits on the other side. The descent is deepening, but within that depth lies the seed of your rebirth. When your old self starts to break down, something strange happens. The world seems to change shape. Things that once felt solid and certain begin to blur. The line between who you thought you were and what life really is starts to disappear. Jung called this the moment when the ego meets the self, the deeper, bigger part of you that goes beyond your everyday personality. This meeting is both scary and freeing. It's scary because you realize you were never really in control. It's freeing because you no longer have to pretend you are. At first, this stage feels like you're dying inside. The goals, dreams, and roles that once defined you no longer seem important. You might feel empty, lost, or disconnected from everything. But this emptiness isn't bad, it's making space for something new to grow. Buddhists call this state shunyata, the emptiness that isn't nothing, but pure possibility. Before something new can begin, the old must be cleared away. Think about how many of your choices were made from fear, not truth. Fear of being rejected, fear of failing, fear of being alone. We build entire lives around these fears, creating fake versions of ourselves for protection. But awakening tears down these walls. It forces you to see that the self you were protecting never really existed. This hurts, but it's also the beginning of freedom. During this time, it feels like life is taking everything away from you. Relationships might end. Old interests might seem boring. Even things that once made you happy might feel empty. But this isn't going backward, it's clearing out. You're being emptied so you can be filled with something more real. Jung said that only the paradox comes anywhere near to comprehending the fullness of life. You must die to live. You must go down to go up. You must lose everything to find what can't be lost. The pain you're fighting against is actually the beginning of your rebirth. The darkness isn't your enemy, it's the womb where transformation happens. Think of a caterpillar. In its cocoon, it doesn't just grow wings, it completely dissolves before becoming a butterfly. What looks like death is actually change. The same thing happens in your mind. The pain you feel is the dissolving of who you were so who you really are can emerge. Jung discovered that the path to wholeness isn't about becoming perfect, it's about embracing all of yourself. The light and the dark, the good and the bad, the human and the divine. You can't wake up by denying your darkness. You wake up by including it. The parts of yourself you've rejected, your fears, anger, shame, hold the energy you need for transformation. What parts of yourself have you buried? What feelings have you silenced for years? What truths have you avoided because they threaten the identity you worked so hard to build? The journey of awakening isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. This is when pain becomes wisdom. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this trying to teach me? Every wound becomes a mirror. Every loss becomes a message. Slowly, you see that nothing was random, everything was guiding you toward awareness. Jung's patients often had dreams about going into caves or facing monsters. These dreams showed their inner journey of facing the unknown parts of themselves. When they faced their shadows bravely, the dreams would change, the monsters would become helpers. The darkness would turn to light. So if you're in a time of confusion, loss, or deep pain, remember, you're not broken, you're being refined. You're going through the process. Jung talked about turning lead into gold, suffering into awareness. The lead is your pain. The gold is your awareness. The fire is the experience that burns away everything false. At some point, the darkness begins to soften. The heavy feeling that seemed like it would never end starts to lift. Like a storm that has finally passed. You wake up one morning and notice something different. The air feels lighter. The silence feels peaceful instead of scary. You are not who you were before. Something inside you has changed. This is how awakening begins, quietly. After the fire has done its work, Jung said, what you resist persists. What you accept transforms. When you stopped fighting your pain, it began to show its true purpose. Every tear, every sleepless night, Every unanswered question was part of your journey. The breakdown you feared wasn't the end, it was clearing a path for something new. You were being emptied so you could hold more light. As your awareness grows, life itself starts to look different. You begin to see the same events that once caused you suffering through new eyes. Where you once saw betrayal, you now see the breaking of illusion. Where you once saw loss, you now see freedom. The people who hurt you become teachers who showed you what needed healing. The pain that almost broke you becomes the foundation of your wisdom. Now you understand what Jung meant when he said, "No tree can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." You cannot rise without first going down. You cannot truly live until you have faced the death of your false self. This is the secret behind every true awakening. The light you were looking for was never outside you. It was hidden beneath the very pain you tried to avoid. The suffering was the doorway, and when you walked through it, you discovered that the darkness wasn't empty, it was full of meaning. It was your own soul calling you home. In this new awareness, peace isn't the absence of pain, it's understanding the purpose of pain. You still feel emotions, but they no longer control you. You still face challenges, but they no longer destroy you. You begin to see that every experience is a teacher, every wound a lesson, every ending a beginning. Life stops being something that happens to you and becomes something that happens for you. Imagine living from this place where your peace isn't easily broken, where you don't need to control everything to feel safe. That's what awakening gives you. It doesn't make life easier, it makes life deeper. You stop running from the human experience and begin to embrace all of it, the joy and the sorrow, the mess and the order, the shadow and the light. You see beauty even in imperfection because you finally understand that nothing is wasted. Viktor Frankl said that when we can't change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Awakening is exactly that, the moment when you realize that changing your outside world means nothing without changing your inside world. And once that change happens, you can't go back. The old way of living no longer fits. You have outgrown your suffering. This doesn't mean pain disappears. It means pain becomes meaningful. It becomes a reminder of your humanity, a sign that you're alive. You stop seeing suffering as the enemy and begin to see it as the raw material of wisdom. Every scar becomes a symbol of rebirth, proof that you went into darkness and returned with light. Jung's work wasn't about escaping the human condition, it was about fully embracing it. He believed that enlightenment isn't found by denying our humanity, but by bringing awareness to every part of our being. The goal isn't to become perfect, but to hold both light and shadow without losing yourself to either. Those who walk this path emerge different, stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. They become living proof that the soul can survive its own fire. Think about who you've become through your struggles, the wisdom you've gained, the compassion you now have for others who suffer. Would you have found that depth without the pain that shaped you? This is the paradox Jung spoke of. The same wound that breaks you also opens you. The same pain that silences you also teaches you how to listen. Awakening isn't a one-time event, it's a new way of living. Once your eyes have opened, you can't close them again. You see life differently now. You understand that even the darkest times contain gifts. You know that every painful experience, no matter how hard, helped you grow. You are no longer the same person who entered the fire. You're something greater, not because you escaped the pain, but because you walked through it and came out changed. The journey doesn't end with awakening. In many ways, it's just beginning. Now you live with a new awareness, seeing beneath the surface of things. You recognize patterns you were blind to before. You feel connected to something larger than yourself. Jung believed that our greatest purpose in life is to become fully ourselves, not the self that others expect us to be, but our true self. He called this individuation, the process of becoming whole, by bringing together all parts of who we are. In this new chapter, you find yourself drawn to deeper questions. Instead of asking what will make me happy, you ask what is my purpose. Instead of what do others think of me, you ask what feels true to me. Your values shift from outer success to inner growth. You begin to notice synchronicities, meaningful coincidences that seem to guide your path. Jung believed these weren't random, but signs that you're aligned with your deeper purpose. When you follow these signs, doors open that you never knew existed. Relationships change too. You're no longer willing to wear masks or play games. You seek authentic connections where you can be fully yourself. Some old relationships may fall away, making room for new ones that match who you've become. You find yourself more present in each moment. The constant chatter in your mind grows quieter. You worry less about the future and regret less about the past. There's a new appreciation for simple things: a sunset, a child's laugh, the feeling of rain on your skin. Pain still comes, that's part of being human, but it doesn't overwhelm you like before. You've learned to sit with difficult feelings without being consumed by them. You understand that emotions are like weather, passing through, sometimes stormy, sometimes clear, but always changing. You become more compassionate, both with yourself and others. Seeing your own shadow helps you accept the shadows in others. You judge less because you understand that everyone is fighting their own battles, walking their own path. There's a new kind of strength in you now, not the strength of control, but the strength of surrender. You've learned that trying to force life to go your way only creates suffering. Real power comes from flowing with life rather than fighting against it. You find meaning even in mundane tasks. Work becomes service. Challenges become opportunities. Ordinary moments become sacred. There's less separation between spiritual life and everyday life. It all becomes one journey. Jung said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." This becomes your truth. Your past no longer defines you. Your wounds no longer limit you. They've become the very source of your wisdom and compassion. You still have goals and dreams, but you hold them lightly. You're less attached to specific outcomes and more focused on living with purpose and integrity. Success is redefined as being true to yourself rather than meeting external standards. Perhaps most importantly, you've made peace with not knowing all the answers. There's a comfort with mystery, with questions that have no simple solutions. You've learned that wisdom often begins with admitting I don't know. This is the gift of the journey through darkness, not a perfect life, but a whole one. Not constant happiness, but deep fulfillment. Not freedom from pain, but freedom within it. If you're still in the darkness now, if the pain feels too much to bear, remember this. You are not being destroyed, you are being transformed. The light you're seeking is already within you, waiting to be uncovered. Trust the process. Surrender to the journey. One day you'll look back and realize that the pain that almost broke you was actually the moment your true life began. This is what Jung taught us. The highest calling of the human soul is to become what you truly are: conscious, whole, and free.